Stardeus is a game similar to RimWorld, except it all takes place in the void of space. And because the new Bioverse update is coming out tomorrow, July 23rd, 2024, today I have decided to partner with Paradox Arc to show you just how wonderful Stardeus is. Now, the Bioverse update comes with a smorgasbord of new features to the game, one of which is a brand new scenario where you actually start on a cargo ship that is leaving the old Earth. In this scenario, you start with plenty of research and resources and a fully functional spaceship, which sounds like a whole lot of fun right off the bat. So I said, what the heck, and with that, the HMS Ratto was born. Sure to be the greatest cargo vessel this universe has ever seen. Something had went wrong on the ship, and our consciousness had to be uploaded to the neural network itself. With that completed, we could begin taking a look at our new vessel. As I mentioned a moment ago, and as you might imagine, a cargo ship has, well, plenty of cargo and resources, which is exactly what we needed to keep our matter reactors going by using steel plates as fuel. It's also important to remember that we have a stasis array, basically an array of a bunch of cryo sleep pods where all of our passengers and crew are asleep. However, slowly over time, more and more of them will begin to awake from their pods, so we need to ensure that this place is ready for any human passengers walking around. Now, something that humans really do not like is suffocating to death and or freezing to death in the icy absolute zero of space. So I thought it might be worthwhile to go ahead and build some small heaters as well as some mini oxygen pumps, slowly but surely making this place hospitable for our Homo sapien compadres. Because I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but the current crew of our cargo ship is entirely made up of drones and robots, for now. And now comes one of the best parts about this new scenario in the Bioverse update is all of this research that is just a click away, allowing us to jump straight into the action by finishing up atmosphere control, reactor efficiency, as well as solar panels. At first I had planned on working on the reactor efficiency upgrades for our matter reactors, but to do so we need a crafting station and we need a human to man that crafting station. So we would end up putting that little project on the back burner for the time being so we could finish up some solar panels, diversifying our energy output. Now by this point, quite a bit of time had passed, and we were expecting a human to wake up from their cryopod at any time now. So we began prepping a room for our human companions just outside the stasis array, and I'm very glad that we did when we did, because shortly thereafter we had to choose who we were going to awaken. At first I was struggling a bit to decide who to go with, but I decided to settle on Bridges Andrews, as he does have the best skill set that I could find out of the three. And his favorite color is blue, which is very important, but don't ask me why. He would rush into the safety of his brand new room and begin getting nice and warm next to his small little space heater. I also noticed that he is very much naked, but he did not desire to be naked, and truly that is half the battle. We'll be dealing with his clothing issues in just a moment. For now, we need to create him some proper amenities in this room, such as a nice, comfy and warm bed, as well as a cold, hard steel table to eat our meals on. What meals, you might ask? Well, currently in our refrigerator we have 100 survival meals ready for action. I told you we were prepared. Now, unlike our robotic companions, humans have to wash themselves and release waste into their environment. So naturally, Briggs would require a toilet and a shower. With that completed, we would also begin working on a crafting station now that we have one of our humans out of stasis. That way they can actually man the crafting station. We would also begin working on the upgrades for our matter reactors, making them quite a bit more efficient, reducing the resource use of our steel plates, which we also use for construction, so it's quite vital. I then unlocked weaving as well as clothing in research. That way we could go about making some proper attire for Briggs, but the problem with that is we require plastic and plant fiber to make any type of clothing, and we don't have any plant fiber. But then I noticed something. Is that an egg? Where did this come from? It's hatching! Well, I didn't want Briggs touching it in case it's something like a xenomorph, so we had our drone take it into the other room, and I just kind of started watching it. Looks like it's going to be a little while before anything happens, though. In the meantime, we would end up building 2 small planter boxes. That way we can plant some wheat. Now, not only will wheat give us grain, but it will also give us plant matter, which we need to make clothing. The pacing of Stardeus is pretty great, as you can see by how fast these plants begin sprouting. A pacing that I personally very much enjoy. I also felt like our room here was very dark, so I went around and built about 4 or 5 more lights in the flooring, that way we could see. And with that, it was time for our egg to hatch. I really hope it's some sort of alien space pet. Well, that's disappointing. Well, at least we've discovered a new life form, but it doesn't seem to be all that friendly. It looks like we're gonna have to stop. Okay, well, apparently, Briggs didn't stop the alien, and now it's attached to his face. Don't panic. Everything's going to be fine. Probably. I did, however, notice that our robotic companions were not experiencing the same issue. It would seem that these crawlers can only attach themselves to organic life. Bridges was struggling a little bit, though, trying to get it off of his face, and even when the robots came in, but I couldn't manage to get it to knock that thing off of him, so the only thing I could really do is sit around and just watch, unfortunately. Eventually, though, he did get it off of him, and the robots came in and finished it off. Phew, well, that was a little bit scarier than I expected. Now's probably a good time to take a look at the body parts that are added with this update. As you can see, we have a smorgasbord of new body parts. Using this menu, we can actually check out his head and jaw, which appear to be slightly injured for the most part. As you can see, the condition on each is fairly okay. A little bit of rest and he should be a-okay. Now, this is a good lesson for the future, though. The next time we have a strange alien-looking egg that just somehow enters our bedroom, we should probably throw it outside instead. A lesson learned for the future. Then, for a little bit of time, we'd begin expanding into the next room, putting all of our production equipment in there, as well as an oxygen pump and a heater. Somehow it didn't seem humane to keep our one and only human in a 10 by 10 room his entire life. Within our brand new production room, we would also build a brand new area to produce basic data through a, well, you guessed it, basic data harvester. This new machine allows us to produce basic datoids as well as a few other types of datoids, which are crucial for unlocking research. But then something a little bit alarming had happened. Our radar had detected a breach capsule within proximity of the ship, inching closer and closer by every passing second. And because we don't have any defenses on the outside of the ship, we had no way to stop it. It would eventually make its way to the HMS Ratto, puncturing a hole through the bottom of the ship's hull and breaching through the inside. However, the two breachers from the vessel were met with anything but hospitality from our crew. Our robot Rotor here might be made of metal, but he sure knows how to fillet a mignon. Now that the attackers had been turned into strawberry pudding, I decided that we would stack their bodies in a nice little pile with all of the crawlers for our robotic companions to adore. As a consolation prize, we could also deconstruct the breaching vessel for its wonderful materials before we began repairing our hull. But now the moment you've all been waiting for Briggs here to finally put on a pair of pants. And there we are. Doesn't he look splendid? Well, it would indeed seem that he feels a lot better, but I thought a nice yellow hat might complement his black and turquoise? Purple shirt. It's turquoise. What? I don't even know what I'm thinking. Anyhow, though, shortly thereafter it would be time for us to once again wake up one of our human crewmates. I've decided to wake up Haley Boy Chan for many reasons, such as the fact that she has a pretty good skill set compared to the other two, but also because she's a female, and I secretly hope that she and Briggs fall in love. Needless to say, she was pretty darn happy to get out of her stasis pod, and she was very grateful and happy to be alive. We were also grateful for her. She immediately started contributing by cleaning up the oil left by the robots around the ship. And of course, as you could imagine, Briggs was quite excited to finally have another organic life form aboard the ship, especially since our drones and droids aren't exactly much for conversation. We would immediately make sure she's nice and comfy by building her very own bed, as we want her to feel right at home. Once that was completed, we began producing some basic datoids. The next research we would use these basic datoids on was energy storage, which will allow us to build a battery. I'm positive you probably already know how a battery works, but it will allow us to store excess energy. We would also end up building plenty of new solar panels to go along with our battery. If you remember earlier, I built one on each side of the ship, which didn't really produce that much energy, so this should be a lot better. However, tragedy would strike yet again. Do you remember that crawler that attached itself to Briggs' face earlier on in the video? Yeah, apparently it laid eggs in his tummy. I suppose I probably should have seen this coming. Well, after smacking them around for a few moments, we ended up with 2 dead crawlers, but also 1 dead Briggs. Unfortunate? Yes. A travesty that is unlike any other? Most definitely. But at the very least, we could strip him of his clothing and give them to Boy. I'm afraid that she, and only she now, will be able to take up the reins of Briggs and become the sole heir to the cargo ship. Until we have other people wake up, at least. And the only thing that Briggs shall inherit is this little spot in our body pile to rot. Ah, very depressing. With the immediate threat neutralized, though, we would continue working on our solar panel array as well as another battery on the opposite side of the cargo ship. We then began adding oxygen pumps, lights, and heaters into the control room of our ship. That way we can make sure any of our human companions can go in there. During which time we had a really big fire due to a short circuit, which really sucked, but luckily our robots put it out pretty quickly, and for the most part, after a few repairs, everything was hunky-dory. Then I gave it a little bit of time so that the temperature wasn't excruciatingly cold and we had enough oxygen. Another key component to our little construction project here are these teleporters, which actually come equipped on the ship in a pair of 2 with the cargo ship scenario. I had neglected to mention them up until this point, but now they're going to be very useful. We're going to be relocating one of them into our crew quarters and the other into the bridge of our ship, making for very easy passage between the 2 areas. A big reason I wanted to do this is in case we have a scenario where enemies are coming into the crew quarters to try and kill our humans and they could rush out of there into the control room. This also feels like a pretty good time to introduce Boy here to the ship's controls, as she is technically now the captain, and also the only person that could be captain at the moment. We would also be able to view the star map and see that the HMS Ratto was in a very high orbit around some type of brown planet. A bit further out and we could see the entire solar system that we're currently in, with a smorgasbord of planets, moons, and other objects to explore, one of which being Tuva Station, a very well-known station, I take it, in this planetary system, perhaps even looking to do some trading with a well-known cargo ship such as ourselves. So naturally, we would set course and begin heading that way. Finally, we're not alone anymore. I mean, truthfully, we were never alone, as we have plenty of people in stasis pods, but now we have another vessel. It's just a bit comforting to know that there are other humans out here that are not hostile. And Tuva Station was anything but hostile. On the contrary, they were very friendly and willing to trade us some spacesuits in exchange for some plant matter as well as copper plates. The best thing about these spacesuits is that they actually allow your colonists and or humans to go into areas where they wouldn't with just a normal uniform and a cute little yellow hat, of course. Speaking of which, it would appear that humans can actually wear uniforms, hats, space helmets, and space suits all at the same time. As you can see here, when I force Boy to go out into a not so friendly environment, she actually will automatically transition between her normal clothing and the spacesuit, which really simplifies things and makes things much more convenient. Speaking of convenient, I went ahead and began walling off the stasis array room. That way, whenever we have people coming out of it, they'll already be in a safe environment. And to do so, of course, we would put a mini heater in there, and the stasis array actually already has its own oxygen pump, so we didn't have to worry about that. We would then actually unlock the research to go ahead and build a research station, and then we would of course go ahead and begin working on one. This little hot ticket item is going to help us out by creating some specific types of datoids that we actually need for other types of research that I have planned, so we would go ahead and begin producing plenty of those as well. And would you look at the time, we already have the option to retrieve another one of our colonists from stasis. Funny enough though, one of them was not a human, but a pig. A domestic pig who was created in a cloning pod, apparently, who also was a drug dealer. Okay, well, her favorite color was green. How could we say no? And just like that, Shadow the drug-dealing pig was now part of our crew. How splendid! She was ever so excited, she ran straight through the teleporter and began sleeping on a nice warm bed. If Boy is our captain, perhaps Shadow could be our first mate. No time to really think about that though, because we have a stasis pod flying straight for our vessel. A little bit worrisome, as it didn't appear to be coming from the station itself, more of just the cold abyss of space, it would seem. It ended up landing right in our shuttle bay, and of course we rushed all of our robots in just in case whatever comes out of there isn't exactly friendly. Rotor and his Bowie knife were more than ready, but it was actually just a couple of corpses. Womp womp. At the very least though, we ended up getting some materials from their little pod here that we deconstructed, so that was pretty cool. We would then unlock the improved planter research, that way we can build much larger and improved planters, which we would promptly end up building. We would also end up planting some oak trees in them, but I hadn't realized just how much water these would require, and we had ran out of water that was in storage, so we would need to begin making our own through a recycler. Essentially, it's a machine that turns the fecal matter and other waste from our porta potty into water. It's kinda like magic, but in space. And we had started doing that until, well, more crawlers were jumping out of more bellies. You would think I'd learn by now. Yeah, so apparently those two corpses that arrived in that little shuttle had some crawler eggs inside of them, which does make sense. We quickly finished them off though, and now it's time to take their bodies outside. Indeed, you did hear me correctly. We no longer have a corpse pile on the inside of our vessel. The reason being, as one might imagine, colonists don't really like seeing dead bodies lying all over the floor, so this way they don't have a negative mood buff from it. As you can see, their emotions are quite complex, and there are other things that we can add to make them happy, like entertainment, clean floors, things like that. Something in particular they might like are decorations, so we built a large wooden sculpture of a rocket ship as well as a vase, although I ended up deconstructing the vase because it needed water, and we're already kinda low. But without further ado, it is once again time for us to awaken another of our crew. This time around, I've decided to awaken Softy. Softy seemed to have the best skill set out of the three humans, and he also really enjoys doing most of his skills. As you can see, when the text is green, that means, well, he loves doing that type of work. Just as the others before him, though, he was stark naked, so we immediately had him make some clothing, and he was looking a-okay. But now it was time for us to address our water issues for the moment. I had already deconstructed a few of our large and small planters, that way we're not using up so much of the water, but we still needed a way to produce more of it. And that is where our nutrient harvester comes into play by utilizing corpses. By harvesting nutrients from dead bodies, we actually get meat, leather, and most importantly of all, water. And by golly, did we have plenty of corpses to dispose of. I would need to make absolutely sure that it was only our robotic companions that were harvesting nutrients from humanoid bodies because, well, our human companions here on the ship really don't like when that happens. Finally, we also had two fully grown oak trees that we could harvest, and we got plenty of logs and whatnot from them. And with that, we would actually be able to begin trading with the station below. First, we would begin trading uniforms, tracksuits, space helmets, and then we would move on to some plant matter and logs, all of which we had either grown ourselves or gotten when we tore apart those corpses for nutrients. And now Softy and Boy and even Shadow the pig can rest easy knowing that we are a self-sustaining cargo vessel. Not only are we growing our own food and also extracting it, but we're also producing resources that we can trade with the station below as well as anyone else. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many other things we can do here, so many other star systems to explore, heavenly bodies. The universe is truly grand and ever expanding in Stardeus. Until next time.